All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Answering Objections to Christianity. In this episode, we'll be discussing theological non-cognitivism, also known as non-cognitivism, agnosticism, semantical atheism. Now, theological non-cognitivism asserts that religious language is not cognitively meaningful. Now, theological non-cognitivism came about as a result of logical positivism, which is a school of thought which operated in the 1920s within a group of Vienna philosophers with people like A.J. Ayer and Herbert Fiegel. Their anti-metaphysical stand developed a principle of empirical verification, by which the only statements to be considered meaningful are statements that are empirical and tautologies, the roots of which found in David Hume. Likewise, if Hume were correct, then there are only two kinds of meaningful statements. One, those true by definition, analytical. Example, all unmarried men are bachelors. And second, statements known to be true through the senses, or synthetic. Example, it's raining outside. So only definitional and sensible sensory statements are meaningful. All the rest are literally nonsense. Here is the logical positivist's fatal flaw. It dies by its own sword, it's self-defeating and suicidal. That's because the principle of empirical verifiability is not empirically verifiable, and every attempt to broaden it destroys its effectiveness. Logical positivism cannot be used to exclude metaphysical statements. Now, for example, if someone says the only statements that are meaningful are statements that we can verify by science, just ask that person if that statement that they just spoke can be verified by science. And if not, then it's not meaningful. Likewise with theological non-cognitivism. Now, if God talk is meaningless, then theological non-cognitivism is meaningless. Just ask the theological non-cognitivist, why is God talk meaningless? And whatever criteria they give you to determine meaningful and meaningless statements, use that criteria on theological non-cognitivism. Now, once the theological non-cognitivists realize the position is self-defeating, they will then attempt to separate God talk with theological non-cognitivism. They may say something like, God talk is said to be a concrete idea, while theological non-cognitivism is an abstract idea, or something along those lines. Now, don't be confused by this. Rest assured that theological non-cognitivism will have to go through the same test for meaning as God talk. Both God talk and theological non-cognitivism are similar in that they are metaphysical statements. They are not concrete statements referring to the physical. They are both truth claims about the real world. Theological non-cognitivism makes truth claims about the real world referring to what is and is not meaningful to humans. Meaning is not a concrete physical object. If theological non-cognitivism can make meaningful statements about the non-physical, then so can God talk. Another interesting point is that if it is claimed that theological non-cognitivism is not meaningful to reality, but is just a useful guide, etc., then consider this. Theological non-cognitivism makes truth claims, and in order for something to be true, it must also be meaningful in the real world, because truth is that which corresponds to reality. If any proposition that is true must be meaningful, and if a proposition is only meaningful when it meets certain necessary conditions, then a proposition can only be true if it meets the same necessary conditions of meaningfulness. So if theological non-cognitivism is true, then it's meaningful. Hence, metaphysical statements are meaningful. Yes, God talk is meaningful. If the theological non-cognitivist says that theological non-cognitivism is neither true or false, but metacognitive, then just tell them that by its own standards it's a belief, and a belief, the truth of which is not testable or falsifiable. All right, I know that was a lot. Here's the key thing to remember. If theological non-cognitivism is true, then theological non-cognitivism is meaningless. Thank you so much for watching. Post questions, comments, like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.